Hello, it's Jeta, and today I thought I would give you some tips on how to deal with exam stress, because I know that exams are coming up in a few days to a few weeks for most of us, and it can be a very, very stressful time. And even though stress can be helpful with in exam season because it does motivate us to actually revise, at the same time it can be very unhealthy and sometimes lead us to underperform in our exams because of just pure panic. So I thought I would just kind of share some things. These are mainly things to do leading up to the exams, how to kind of reduce stress in the general exam period. But in terms of things to do when you're actually in the exam, I feel like that's very individual, because me personally, I will panic right up until the exam, and when the examiner says go, I'm so absorbed in the paper and just answering the questions that I don't actually stress. But that can be very different for someone else, which is why I'm only really going to be talking about exam season as a whole in terms of de-stressing. So the first piece of advice I would say is to just get yourself organized in terms of making a revision plan, or at least having a to-do list every day of the things that you want to get done. And the reason for this is because if you are organized and if you know exactly what you want to do, it can mean that you are just a bit less stressed, because it just reduces the amount that you have to think about. You already need to hold so much knowledge in your head for these exams, and so having extra things to think about, such as what you're going to do next or how you're going to revise for the next week, can not only be stressful but overwhelming for your brain. And so it's just a good idea to be organized, both in terms of your work, but this can also mean organization in terms of your space. Around exam season, my room just becomes so messy, and even though it's really hard to clean your room during exam season because you just feel like you don't have time, I definitely know that if my room was tidier, I'd probably stress less, because if everything around you is really tidy and put together, then I think internally you will start to reflect that same thing. And then the second thing is to remember to take breaks when studying. And the reason why you should do this is so that you don't burn out, because the worst thing that can happen during exam season is burnout. When I say taking breaks, this could mean taking 10 minutes between every hour of studying, or it could be taking 2 hours in between like 4-hour chunks. It really depends on how you work best, whether you like to study in shorter chunks or in longer periods of time. But as long as you make sure that you are taking time outside of work, and when I say taking time out, do not just sit at your desk on your phone. Actually physically take yourself away from where you're studying, go somewhere else, talk to someone. Because if you completely isolate yourself, even though, yes, we do need to isolate ourselves to be efficient and productive in our revision, if you isolate yourself for such a long period of time, that also isn't great for your mental health. And so just make sure that when you are taking breaks, you also just leave wherever you're studying, whether that be your room or the library. Make sure that you kind of change locations. Then the third thing is kind of linked from that, but give yourself a cutoff point for work. So if you say, okay, I'm going to study till 8 p.m. and then I need to stop, but make sure that you have that point that you stop at, because otherwise it can be really tempting to just kind of keep revising really late. But the reason why you need this cutoff point is so that you can get a reasonable amount of sleep. Sleep is vital for us, especially around exam season. You might think that, oh, I'll benefit more if I just revise for an extra 2 hours because that content might come up. But if you have less sleep, it can impact on your memory, on your mood, your stress levels, your concentration. And those are all things that you need in your exam. You need to be concentrated and focused and well rested in order to perform well. And so I think that sleep is even more important than doing that extra hour of revision, because also around exam season you're doing so much revision, but in order to actually process what you're doing, you need to sleep, because that's when your brain does all its reorganization and processing. And so it is just really important. So number one, having that cutoff point of work, but number two, making sure that you actually go to sleep after this cutoff point. So then the fourth tip is not to compare yourself with others. And when I say not to compare yourself, I mean in terms of how much work you're doing, like how many hours, in terms of what grades you're getting. And this could not only be to your friends, but even like study tubers on YouTube. Remember that every single person has a different way of revising. Some people are able to sit down and just do straight 8 hours of work. I cannot do that, and I never will. But that doesn't mean that I'm not doing as much revision or my revision isn't as effective. Just don't compare yourself. Yes, it can be motivating when everyone's around you is revising, or you watch a study with me, but that should only be a source of motivation for you, not a source of almost like a standard of how much you should be doing, because no one can tell you how much you should be doing. And I get this question a lot sometimes in the comment section, like, how many hours of revision should I be doing, or should I start revising now, and things like this. And I get it. Sometimes it's really hard to know, but no one else can answer that question for you either. It's a very individual thing. And so comparing yourself to people can make you feel even worse and even more stressed if you feel like you're not doing as much as everyone else, and so it's just important to kind of just focus on yourself instead. And I know it's harder, it's easier said than done, but it's important to try to not do that. Then the fifth thing, which kind of leads off from the last point, is to remove or eliminate people or things around you which don't make you feel good. Whether it be friends that make you feel bad about yourself, or friends that are not motivated to study, or your phone, like social media, or whatever it is, you need to try to take out those things in your life. And it can be hard, and it doesn't have to be forever, but at least throughout exam season, if someone just doesn't make you feel good about yourself, just don't be around them. Try to distance yourself. And you don't need to tell them why. You don't need to make it a big thing. You can just say, okay, I just really want to focus on exams at the moment, or whatever. Just try to surround yourself with people that uplift you and motivate you and excite you to revise and to kind of get ready for exams. Because exam season is already so stressful on its own, you don't really need more stress from other people or other things putting you down. So I think, as difficult as it can be, just thinking about what in your life doesn't make you feel good and trying to take it out. And it's not always possible, but just do whatever you need to do to distance yourself from that thing or that person. Then number 6, I think, is really, really important, and that is to check in with yourself every single day. You can do this by journaling, meditation, yoga, listening to music, whatever it is, but just having a point in the day where you can just kind of check in with your feelings, just understanding your inner state. Because sometimes when you're in the midst of all these exams, it can be so easy to just kind of get carried away with them and not actually stop for a moment just to see how we're feeling, and then suddenly you're on the verge of burnout and you didn't even see it coming. So I think that's why it's so important to just have a moment each day. This could be in the morning, midday, or even the evening, just to check in. We so quickly notice when we're physically unwell, but we are so less aware of when we're mentally unwell. And those two things are just as important as each other. And, if you notice that, oh, I'm actually getting really stressed, then you can change your routine. You can change something in your life so that you are less stressed. And then the 7th thing is that there is a difference between general exam stress, which is kind of what I'm talking about in this video, and anxiety. And it's really difficult to tell the difference sometimes. Stress is a very common response to exams, and it's reasonable because exams are important. So of course you're going to be worried about how you do in them, and there is going to be a sense of panic and adrenaline. Anxiety is when that goes to an extreme, and that's why it's important to check in with yourself. As I said, if you notice that it's becoming this extreme where it's no longer just general exam stress, no, this has actually become me being really anxious, make sure that you reach out to someone and get help. I think it's really important to realise that not everyone deals and copes with exams in the same way. And just because some people can deal with it, it doesn't mean that you can deal with it. And don't just tell yourself, oh, everyone's stressing, this is normal. If you think, no, I'm actually struggling to cope, don't be scared to reach out for help. And I will link down below some resources and things that you might want to have a look at if you are really struggling with exam stress or anxiety, or for whatever reason you think that you might need some extra support and help. And then the last thing is that your physical and mental well-being are more important than anything else in your life. Exams, yes, are important. Your future is important, of course. But if you're not well mentally or physically, that doesn't matter. What's the point in pushing yourself to your limit and beyond that limit for exams? You need to just keep reminding yourself that yes, exams are a priority, they are not the only priority. You need to prioritize yourself at the same time. And I know it's easier said than done, but it's so important to remember, which is why you just have to keep reminding yourself. But yeah, that's all the advice I have. Next week, actually, so from the 9th to the 15th of May, it is Mental Health Awareness Week, which is why I thought it would be quite good to post this video now. So yes, be kind to yourselves and good luck with revision. And I hope you have a lovely day. Bye.